Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by the NMFTA. Let me ask you a question. Do you ship LTL freight? Then listen up, because the NMFC changes went live on July 19th, and they're the biggest updates in the history of freight classification. Now more than ever, accuracy matters. That's why carriers, shippers, and brokers alike are turning to Class IT Plus, the NMFTA's new digital platform for real-time NMFC data. Stop guessing, start classifying smarter, and quote freight with confidence. It's time to get your ship together because the NMFC changes are already here. Learn more at nmfcchanges.com and get started with Class IT Plus at classitplus.com. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach podcast, and it's in front of us like it's a literal studio audience right now. We got people behind us here. You can hear them in the back. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, we're live from the LTNA annual conference here in Chandler, Arizona. It's phenomenal. It's 5 minutes from my office. And plus, we get everybody from the rest of the country to come out and enjoy our summertime out here, which is November through June. And I got my good friend Jon Pruitt back on the show, you guys, to break it down. We're going to be doing a little bit of a market report, what's going on out there in the freight market as a whole. But most importantly, what can we expect as we're out there trying to develop new business in the market, and really the importance of understanding what our customers are going through. It's not just us who are having issues out there in the freight market as a whole. So, Jon, thank you so much for taking the time to join me here today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be here. So it's been a while since I've been back in the early days when I first met you. So a lot of podcasts have passed since then.
Yeah, no, it has. We're at like 1330, 1340 from episode number mark at this point. And you know, Brad was saying, he's like, he doesn't see how I can do this every single day. But it's like, for me at this point, I feel like there's so much information that's out there, but like how much of it is credible and like relevant. And I think like in social media culture, what you see is it's really easy. I mean, like with these microphones and this camera, you can spend $3,000 and look really legit out there. But again, do you actually have the experience that you're talking about on social media and through podcasting and everything? And for me, it's like, it's so important to continue to highlight people who are active in the freight industry, most importantly, who have seen market cycles before, who've seen good markets, bad markets, hard economic times, everything else, to come out here and talk about it. Because I think, at least from my perspective, yes, right now it's challenging to onboard new business, but like at the end of the day, there's a lot of similarities out there, because it was never easy to onboard real customers that you could like grow and scale with. Like finding somebody to quote, that's still in today's market. It's easy if you can, you know, in 30 seconds you call them and they're like, oh, we'll add you to our distribution list. That doesn't mean you're a great sales rep. That means them and everybody else out there who's called them gets that exact same opportunity. So from your seat today, Jon, as we're going into 2026, what is something from your guys' perspective that you guys are paying attention to the most in regards to the transportation market?
Yeah, so that's a loaded question. So everybody here, hands are poised over the notepads. Everybody's taking notes. So, and I don't blame you. So that's the $1 million question, right? So what sets you apart when you're going to approach a shipper or anybody that you're looking for an opportunity with, right? So number one, what's your advantage? Like, what sets you apart from everybody else that's making the same cold call? As a shipper, what we're looking for is, I go back to, have you done your homework? So do you know what I'm looking for? So, you know, for my industry, we're in food and beverage. So if you come to the table and you understand that I'm in food and beverage, and you have an understanding of what I'm more than likely looking for in the food and beverage space, then you're going to make, a pitch, so to speak, that says, hey, Jon, this is what I can offer you tailored to your industry. It's not always about cost. What matters most to me is what kind of service can you provide? What kind of, enhancements can you give me that relate to service, to my customer? Cost is important, but what really matters to me is the service you can provide. Are you going to be available when I need you? When everything goes wrong? What does your team look like? What does technology look like? So can you give me the whole package? And are you available, when everything goes south, right? When everything goes wrong? Everybody's going to come in and say, I can do whatever you need, whenever you need it. And that's generally the pitch that you throw out the window, because if you can say, I can do it all of the time, that's likely just a bunch of BS, right? I mean, let's just say what it is. But the one thing that sets them apart is just, when you come in and just say, hey, transparently, this is who we are, this is what we can offer you, this is what we're good at. That generally resonates with a shipper, because you've just laid it out there. This is what I can do for you. This is who I am. And you've done your homework, and you understand at least somewhat who I am.
Yeah. No, and that's one thing I think that selling, starting out in this industry in 2011, like I did as a broker, that was the mentality that was out there, right? You need to call people and you need to say, we can do anything. Just give us an opportunity. We'll get in the door. And being out and restart. So like I cold started our brokerage back in 2022, me and my business partner. And I noticed early on in our sales outreach that like the way we were selling was not applicable anymore. And so we just really, really tailored our outreach, and we're very niche based, right? Like we are 100% open deck, heavy haul. That's all we do, full truckload, partial truckload. Like I'm not selling on the fact that I can move an LTL shipment for one of my prospects as I'm going out there. So it's a lot of word vomit. And what I've found is that it's resonated with our customers and our prospects when we're going in there on that singular sales focus. And I think that that's what you see out there in a lot of the reps is they're being taught by individuals like myself who has been selling a long time, and that's what used to work. And maybe they haven't developed a book of business in the last 5 to 10 years because they got an existing customer base, but now they're in charge of their organization and they're training those new sales reps on those old methodologies because that worked back then. And I can sit here and say, from somebody who's sold in both markets, it's like that's the fastest way to get hung up on out there. And it's a slow play, right? Like no business out there is flourishing at the levels that the post-COVID boom brought. Yeah. And, when you're going in there, like everybody's looking at every little thing. And I've started really adopting the mindset when I'm prospecting somebody is like, all right, you have competitors, right? Like we were just talking in depth before, earlier today about with energy drinks now and how many subcategories are out there. And you guys have competitors from every angle that is coming on. And I think like understanding what you guys go through in your niche alone is going to help bring just more of a better appreciation for why you need to be more prepared when you're going in there and trying to prospect your customers, because one bad shipment could cost you guys 7 figures of revenue. Maybe not one, but absolutely. in time, absolutely. That could happen if you don't have the proper qualifications or even understanding about what moving food and bev is. And, I moved food and bev for the first 7 years of my career, right? I've been into every major grocery retailer, distribution center that's out there. You guys can have that freight, right? Like I will take the crane offload job site freight any day of the week that Open Deck brings to the table, because I've never had more freight rejected than going into a large grocery retailer because packaging was ripped or a pallet was broken. And then that causes 2 days of delays and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's more difficult to deal with. So, the interesting thing is, and this is where it's just questions about the market, questions about, hey, how do I get in and do business with you, with your organization? It's like I said, it's what everybody wants to know the answer to. And the fact of the matter is, when you look at the condition of the market right now, because from a shipper's perspective, I always have questions for carriers, whether they're asset or broker. And I always like to ask the question, how are you doing? What is the point of view, from your side of the table, so to speak? And the reason I want to ask that is because we see it from a shipper's market. And if you look at the comment section, right? I mean, no matter the social media venue, anytime you see a certain post, it's always like, let's go to the comments, because one way or the other, it's going to be entertaining. So I'm one of those people occasionally, and then you're like, I'm out. Like I've seen enough. I need to go get therapy or something. So let's get out of here. But there are those posts that are a bit of a trigger when you look at LinkedIn even, and sometimes you look at the market posts, and rates are so low, and there's a bit of a blame game for shippers. Well, shippers have driven the market down, but I think the key word is it is a marketplace.
Yeah.
And the market sets the rate. We don't, as a shipper, we take a position. We don't take the lowest cost carrier, because we are in food and beverage. We have customers to service, and it's our job in my supply chain team. It's our job to service our customer to the best of our ability. It's my responsibility for our organization to do right, from a financial perspective, and make the best decisions we can, so that we're not, spending cash unnecessarily, right? Irresponsibly. So we do have to make good decisions financially.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're not going to go out there and say, get in a bidding war and say, all right, you had the lowest cost, so we're always going to go low cost carrier. It's just not the way we operate, because we value relationships. We value carriers who have been in it for the long haul and who have been with us through good times and bad. And we're going to respect that relationship, and we're going to continue to work with that carrier, even if they're not always the lowest cost, right? We're going to onboard carriers who sometimes are not the lowest cost because they have a better value proposition.
Yeah.
So you don't always have to win on price, but you need to bring something to the table that sets you apart. Whether it is in today's environment, right? It might be the fact that you've taken the time with your organization to invest in an API. It's like, that's very simple. But right now, when you look at spot freight, right? If your organization has API for spot versus manually bidding on spot, that's something that from a shipper's perspective is more advantageous, because I don't have to wait an hour for my freight to set on the spot board in my TMS. I have an instant rate quote back on API. So a lot of shippers are going to spot boards or API freight only, because that way they can have spot quotes immediately assigned to a carrier. All of that racks up to better service for customers, because we're not waiting on, the typical hour that freight sets on a spot board, where folks are having bidding wars and putting in the rates. So that's just one element. Have API capability for spot. If you're going to do spot, right, for shippers, that sets you apart.
Yeah.
So one little thing that you can invest in as a carrier, and now that's, a value add, right? For when you make that cold call, we make that approach to a shipper, like, hey, we do API. That's just one thing. There's a lot of other opportunities, but it's not always bargain basement prices. It's service, it's technology, and ultimately it's a relationship that you build over time. There's folks I've talked to for years, and finally things worked out, right? Timing was there, and synergies just clicked. Yeah. And we still do business to this day, but I feel bad. It's like, hey, we've talked for 4 years. I met you at every conference and we get along great. I'm sorry, I still don't have freight.
Yeah. No,
that's the way it goes.
But I think that's also understanding what style of customer you're going after, right? Like, you guys are what is considered an enterprise shipper. You guys move thousands and thousands of shipments every single year. What's required to get onboarded with you might be vastly different than the regional shipper who maybe only moves 100 truckloads in a year that's out there. And, like, you're seeing a lot of stuff right now as the market continues to be depressed overall. You're seeing bankruptcies becoming more and more prevalent out there in the media. How important is that from some, in your guys' seat, to talk about the financial stability of your company, so you're not paying us, and then 6 months later, after a company goes bankrupt, you're now paying every carrier that hauled for that provider?
It's extremely important. So that's the challenge right now as well, internally. So when you are in a financial market like we're in today, and when the headlines are constantly, another carrier has filed for bankruptcy, and you have, this stream of brokers who are leaving the market, you have this, what seems like a cycle of bankruptcies occurring in the market. When you look at the headlines, they're, regardless of what, last year's November headline said about the recession being over, then you have the tariff headwinds that have come in again. It's a wait and see approach because you really don't know what's going to happen month to month, in some cases week to week or day to day. So we have to navigate the current marketplace and see what happens. So as a shipper, again, to be responsible, we can't just go out and sign up a bunch of shippers without understanding what is their financial stability, what is your outlook, right? We have to ask those questions. One thing that we have to consider is we're not going to go add a bunch of new capacity right now. We're not going to go sign up a bunch of new carriers that we're not familiar with or that we're not extremely comfortable with in a market such as this.
Yeah.
So I think what you're going to see across a lot of shippers is you're just going to hold with who you have. You're not going to see a lot of new capacity coming on board. You're not going to see a lot of new carriers onboarded in a market such as this.
Yeah.
And instead, you're going to see a bit of the reverse. You're going to see carriers, some of, again, it tends to fall towards the brokerages. You're going to see some of those, the brokers that may be a bit underutilized potentially start falling off. And it's unfortunate, but it is one of those scenarios where we have to see where is the market going, like what's happening. Because from a financial point of view, who's going to be around in the next 6 to 8, 12 months?
Yeah.
And one more point on this, and this is something I was talking with some folks last night here about, is, we go back to relationships, right? And from the very beginning, I would say everybody I've signed up as a carrier has always been very much relationship based. Occasionally it's need based. It's like, I need a specific carrier, to run freight for me on these lanes. This is the type of freight that I need moved. So I'm going out and I'm shopping.
Yeah.
Right. It's every provider's dream, right? You have a shipper who's shopping and it's like, it's Christmas. So everybody's got their hand up. Most of the time you have so many contacts, you don't need to do that, but once in a great while. But most of the carriers that myself and our transportation team back at the office have onboarded, it's folks that we already, we know them. We've been in the industry long enough that it's all relationship based. And I would say the challenge we have is in the market we've seen during this downturn is you lose the reps at the carriers that you've done business with for years and years. And so that go-to contact that you have at your favorite carrier, you realize it was your favorite representative at the carrier.
Yeah.
Then you have a new account manager, you have, somebody new at the dispatch team, and it can be a completely different experience.
Yeah.
So I would say, and I'll actually pitch this back to you after this. Sometimes you might have to hold the stop sign up for me.
No, this is, they don't need to hear me.
It's like, what's Chris doing over there? He's putting the stop sign up for John.
I'm just looking good, man.
But what you have to do sometimes is, there are carriers who have a really good continuity plan, right? So they're going to lose an operator. They're going to lose somebody, on the account management team, and they've got a plan. You never know anything changed, right? But there are some folks from a relationship team. It's the person you're calling at 11 o'clock at night. Hey, something happened with the load. What's going on? They're always answering their phone. They live and die with your freight. That's why we're doing business with them. All of a sudden they're gone. They're working for somebody else, or they left the industry.
Yeah.
So that has happened, more and more frequently over the last, couple of years as folks are exiting the market or changing to different organizations. So that's a challenge. How do you manage that, right, with your customers? How do you retain the shipper when you lose their key contact?
Yeah. So I guess my question to you then, John, is how, because, as somebody who's building up their organization, and I'm sure as a lot of you guys in this room have, and you know what, you're not a sales rep anymore. Now you are in leadership. How important is it, especially in a high turnover industry that is freight, and especially inside of freight brokerage, right? Most people rarely make it past 6 months. How important is it for somebody like myself, who's the leader of my organization, to stay in touch with you, to know that, like, hey, John, I might not be responding to everything, but I am still behind the scenes. You can still contact me. Is that something that you would look for in the event? Because, like, people are going to change jobs at the end of the day. How do you help people manage that change from a leadership perspective, that maybe they onboarded you, now they have moved on and there's another rep, but that rep is changing? Would you like to see somebody like myself call you and say, hey, John, this is what's happening. This individual is leaving. We're going to backfill it. I'm still a part of this. I've always been a part of it.
I think that's exactly where you kind of hit the nail on the head. So that's the difference in where it's worked and where it hasn't. So when we've had operators who have changed, so we've had whether it is our account manager, whether it's someone who's just, because depending on your structure, it might be it could be somebody who they're managing at a dispatch level. They're just they're running your entire account. But when you have in a small size, small to mid-sized company, you may have a partner, you may have the owner of the company that's really your go-to person, right? I've had the owner of a brokerage, and when you have a question on a load, you're picking up the phone and you're calling them, and they might be running a $50 to $100 million brokerage, and they're still like, you're calling them like, hey, where's my load? And they're always answering the phone. It's probably not the ideal structure, right?
Yeah.
When you're running a business like that, but it worked. So when you lose that operator in the organization, the ideal scenario is exactly what you described. So if I can just stay in touch with leadership at that team, and they're coming back and they're like, John, here's the deal, right? This person left, found a new opportunity, or I don't need to know all the details. Most of the time I get that phone call on the side and I might know all the details. For anybody listening, that's never happened. All right. So anyway, everybody's been cool. But but for when that happens, if we get that communication right from leadership and they're like, hey, we value your business, and you're continuing that relationship from the top down, right? So that's going to likely save your business. If I found out 3 months later that I have a new account manager and that's why my account's been struggling, that's a situation where we're probably already looking for somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. So again, a bit of a roundabout way to answer the question, but it is 100% where even at your level, right? Like, hey, I own the company, or I'm in a senior management role, but I see that I've lost my account manager for this shipper. I need to reach out and say, hey guys, here's what happened. Let's make sure you're okay. We've got a plan. We're going to make sure your account is taken care of in the meantime.
Yeah. So with, you were bringing up tariffs earlier, and, and with maybe there's not going to be as much of an opportunity for new providers. And, because I've been talking about this on my show a lot recently, is it's like, you need to be really focused on deep selling with your current customers right now, because in the event the market does tighten up, right? And again, I'm still 50-50 on there being any meaningful change in the next 12 months out there. I think that there is a lot of policy coming down from DC that is really hinging upon any economic growth in the next 12 to 18 months. But I also look at it that, when you're in the door with somebody, you got to be really deep selling them right now, because just internally, 70% of the growth of my company last year was with existing customers. It was growth from existing customers. New business, yeah, we onboarded, but it has taken years to even get that first opportunity that comes along with that. So how much are you guys looking, we'll kind of tie in tariffs a little bit here, not knowing, and again, this is me not knowing where you guys get any of your raw materials from. How are you guys balancing that out while looking at your transportation spend of going into 2026, not knowing what your cost of goods are actually going to look like?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So first off, I'm going to shout out to the procurement team at Nutrabolt. So they've done a fantastic job of really kind of reading the tea leaves and onshoring, a significant amount of materials. So we're in a good position, in many situations. That being said, there's a lot of volatility in the market. That is the understatement of the month for sure. The volatility is real. The great news is, good and bad news, our growth has been phenomenal. Why I've added more gray in the last, I think, couple of months than I have in the last few years. So with all that continued growth, like you said, there's a lot of growth going on for our providers as a shipper. So we have, increasing load counts, we've got increasing opportunities. But when you look at market volatility, where's everything going to go? Do we have exposure when it comes to, tariffs, when it comes to raw materials? There's a whole, different conversation related to that, because it looks, there's some of that exposure is more, it could be with more partners. Yeah. Obviously everything impacts your landed costs, right? Everything impacts, how we do business, where we do business, and opportunities. And the ultimate phone call that says, hey, John, you've got to tighten up on your cost. And I go back to the carriers and be like, hey guys, it's a fantastic market. Everybody's making lots of money. Can you give me your freight for a little bit cheaper, right? No applause. All right. So I just testing the market. I was testing the market. So all right, we're gonna hold where we're at. But anyway, but you know, you do. So even in the market we're in as a shipper, they're gonna come and they're gonna like, look, we need to tighten up on cost. And I know it's like right now, it's like, what exactly am I supposed to tighten up on? But we have to be aware of volatility and understand what can we do to make sure that we are hedging against, you know, any type of the challenges that we expect to face. So with that being said, we still are seeing significant growth internally. So we're still doing significant, you know, planning with our partners, and it's really just about how do we optimize what we have in hand.
Yeah.
So how do we do better? How do we reduce, you know, handling of the products from point A to point B? How do we, you know, optimize the current network that we're in?
Yeah. How would you recommend, you know, hearing that you guys are growing out there, and I know you guys completed an acquisition and everything, you guys have new product lines rolling out. I'm actually going to show this on screen because this is awesome. This right here is one of the new, it's pre-workout. This is going up in my office, but you see a lot of this. There's opportunities that come internally from, like, I'm convinced that a lot of our growth is going to come from inside of your four walls of your organization. And when you hear you saying that there's increased opportunities that are there, how would you recommend somebody coming to you and saying, hey, we can take on more, we have more lanes that we can handle? What does that look like from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So the good news about, so if you're an incumbent within your organization, you generally have access to data, right? So if you have access to data, leverage it. I think that's probably, I hate to use the phrase, but that's a no-brainer for anybody in the room. If you're already hauling for an organization and you have access to data of any kind, and you know that a shipper is moving freight and you're not the one hauling it, if you've got your foot in the door already, then, you know, run some analysis, try to understand what more can you do to move freight for that organization and leverage, whether it be backhauls, whether it be just, you know, leveraging opportunities. There are some scenarios where, you know, carriers have an advantage. So if we have carriers who are doing significant volumes, they can run their own network analysis and say, hey, we ran this analysis, we were moving freight from multiple points. We can do some kind of a, you know, pool consolidation, that, you know, cross dock, et cetera. They're at a bit of an advantage. So just call it what it is, right? We have folks who are running intermodal. We have folks who are running full truckload. So there are players who are at an advantage, right? Who are already moving larger volumes of freight. But I would say, number one, start with the data. Do you have data for an incumbent that you're already moving freight for? Okay. Can you leverage that data into any type of analysis that you can take back to the shipper? You know, unsolicited. Say, hey, we did the legwork and we found some opportunities. Do you have any interest? And maybe you don't know exactly what they're paying, but there are, you know, there are market research tools out there that if you're looking at the market and if you're able to, you know, pull market rates and say, I know I can beat market, right? Maybe you have a backhaul opportunity and you just need to fill a truck or whatever the case might be. If you have an opportunity out there and you can take it to that shipper and leverage something of that nature. So again, I'm spitballing, I'm just throwing something out there, but I'm a big believer in data. Nutrabolt as a company is a big believer in data. And because of that, I always appreciate it when a carrier comes back to me or any kind of a partner comes back to me and says, hey, we actually took the initiative, we did the legwork, and we think there might be an opportunity because of what we're seeing from our point of view in your network. What if we try this? Maybe we've already tried it. Maybe we've already looked at it. Maybe we haven't. Yeah.
Would you be open to a question from the audience right now live? If anybody has a question for Jon, would you be open to taking one as we're kind of wrapping up the show?
Absolutely.
Does anybody have a question for Jon that you guys want to ask him about anything regarding freight sales, market related, anything like that? No? Oh, come on. One person?
Anything for Chris?
Yeah, anything for me? Yes, the shirt, you can buy it on my website. No, I'm just kidding.
Is that Wisconsin Hunter Orange?
No, I got this, like when I went into business for myself, I'm like, I got to stand out in a crowd. And if you go to a lot of transportation conferences, everybody's, no offense to anybody who's wearing the dark blue blazer right now with the light blue undershirt, but you see it everywhere. And I'm like, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to stand out in a crowd, I got to wear blaze orange.
Yeah.
And then again, I'm pushing up on 40 now. So I stopped rocking the backwards hat at every single appearance and trying to bring a little bit different look. I'm trying to show the multiple sides of me is all, but no, I go with the orange for that because I want to stand out in a crowd. I want to be noticed from that perspective. And I feel like no one's going to be my cheerleader like I'm going to be my cheerleader. And if I want my brand to grow, if I want my company to grow, it's going to start and stop with me. And why not do something that everybody's going to remember? They will remember orange. All of you in this room will remember. If you've never heard of my show before, that's the guy that we saw talking at the LTNA. Anytime you see orange, Honest, my friend over there, he even noticed it because like I have orange tape on my light that broke. Thank you, Southwest Airlines. But we're not here to talk about that right now. But again, it's all about the brand out there.
Yeah.
But
so
we do. Let's go.
Where are you seeing the biggest disconnect today between what shippers expect and what carriers can realistically execute?
The question was, what is the biggest difference between expectations of shippers and what carriers can actually execute upon?
So that's a great question. I'm trying to think of a good example because I'm going to take cost out of the equation, right? So we're gonna stay away from cost. And I would probably go with, so the categories. I'm going to throw a couple categories from my perspective. So what do I expect from a shipper? Okay, so aside from cost, what I want is a real-time answer on tracking. That is the second thing that I expect most from every shipper out there. Surprisingly, that's probably what I have to still chase the most from full truckload carriers is real-time positioning of where's the truck. And for when you look at the landscape of TMS enablement and tracking, that's probably still the most challenging response that I have. And I would say a bit of that is related to when you have brokers in your network, just because there can be a delay between the actual asset provider and sometimes the broker. So I would say real-time tracking. That may be a surprising answer. I'm a bit curious if you find that a surprising answer.
I would say so.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
with all the technology out there, I would think that that's a little bit more ahead of our time. The fact that you have to still chase that down.
Yeah, that's actually really surprising to me too. But it's also, subtly as somebody who's out there trying to build their book of business, it's a competitive advantage. But at the end of the, but like that's the thing is my big takeaway.
I'll add one more to that real quick. Sorry, I'll add one more to that as well. So this one might even surprise you more. So the fact that you have to remind and ask for proof of deliveries. So for asset-based and broker loads, full truckloads. And that's a daily occurrence.
I look at this, John, and everything you're talking about right now is your biggest pain points is like, I don't see how it's still an issue. Like unless you're trying to hide something, right?
With technology, right?
Yeah. With technology.
Why should you have to do that?
And how many people come into your office and with your guys' team, they're like, we have real-time visibility. We have all of this stuff, but then it doesn't come along with it. So again, I look at it, you guys, like the fundamentals of this industry have not changed in my entire career. They need honesty. They need real-time updates on what's going on, that proactive communication approach on what's happening. And you do that. And if he's having that problem with the company of their size, imagine what everybody else is going through. So like, look at the opportunity. Do you, again, I'm a massive proponent of technology, and sorry, any tech vendor that's here right now, do you really need to invest in that level of communication, or is the cell phone in your pocket sufficient and you're not doing it? Right. So it's like, I look at it as the fundamentals are always going to be the greatest separator that's out there. Your ability to pick up the phone and have a conversation with somebody. But to your point earlier, when things are going wrong, Like the expectation of you like trucks showing up on time and delivering on time, like is the literal expectation. It's the problem that you solve when there's a delay, when there's an issue, when there's damage, to come to you and be like, hey, John, this driver's late. I already talked to such and such distribution center. They're aware they pushed it back 2 hours. This is what's going on. Or, hey, there was damage to 2 pallets that is on this one. We have photos of it. It's marked on the bill of lading. We sent it over to you. Where do you want us to dispose of it or bring it next? It's taking it a step further. But again, it's that proactive versus that reactive mentality that a lot of people have.
Yeah. So, that one is, and to all the carriers that do business with Nutrabolt, we love you, but please send PODs. So now we'll find out if they listen to the very end of the podcast, right? So that's good. But legitimately, so when you think about the fact that, so we use a TMS provider, right? You literally can take a picture of the POD on your phone and upload it. So I would say that's a frustration from a shipper perspective, is why. But a lot of that goes to education, and it's one of those partnership elements where when you onboard a carrier, when you're doing business with someone, right, it's understanding what are the expectations of the shipper in any element, right? What are the expectations of the partnership? And going into the partnership, understanding what is the minimum expectation? Like, if you want to be considered like best in class, what do you expect from me? Did I do a good job presenting my expectations to you? And sometimes we've actually had to own that ourselves, whether it's, so I also, manage warehousing. So it's operations, so warehousing, transportation, and elements of our co-manufacturers and different things of that nature as well. So I have to take a step back as well and look at, did I do a good job explaining my expectations? It's not always on the provider. Sometimes it's on the shipper. And so we have to go back and say, all right, time out. You didn't provide the information because I didn't do a good job setting expectations. So kind of to round all this out, I would say, set your expectations. So if I do the right thing and say, this is what I expect from my providers. And then if you say, all right, I can do that. And once you've committed to those expectations, now I'm in the driver's seat, and that's what I expect to see from you day in and day out. And then when you lose your account manager, and is that organization going to step up, like you said, and come back and be like, hey, we've committed, to providing you this level of service. You're not going to see that change. That relationship is on the tracks, right? As long as that relationship stays, with open communication, two-way.
Yeah.
So good and bad, the market's up, the market's down. When this market flips, which I swear it will at some point in time, I know we hear that everywhere. But when it does, I mean, believe me, 2018, I was the guy getting rates $20,000 to run freight from Chicago to Seattle. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to people that I had done business with for years. They're like, John, that's the best rate you're going to get. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And, now on the flip side, they're like, are you only paying me $1,300? Can I have my 20 grand back? I mean, but really that's the way it works, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. John, thank you so much. We got to get to break here and everything. You got to go. We got questions in the back.
John, what's your opinion or thoughts on Jon Pruitt from the Department of Transportation putting some responsibility on shippers for loading the trailer for the drivers, CDL status, immigration status? It's a huge issue that's happening.
And for the people who are listening, the question is what is your thoughts on Sean Duffy making shippers be held potentially liable for any drivers that are showing up that aren't here legally, cannot speak English, and taking on that burden?
Oh, at least he made me end with a simple question that's
exactly.
not going to get
not
anybody
political at all.
You know what? They wanted to make sure that Chris's comment section was well versed when we go on. So actually, I do have I think what's a good answer for this. So when you look at the state of cargo security in the industry right now, so we already have partners at our warehouses who are providing driver's license validation checkpoints. And I think that would really answer that question, because we have to ensure that when a driver comes in to pick up our freight, they have a valid CDL, that they are who they say they are, and that we are essentially performing a check on who that driver is. And from a shipper's perspective, If we are performing essentially a security check on the CDL that's been issued by the DMV, that's our responsibility. And I think that's as far as our responsibility would go. But we are taking that step. We've piloted that step with some partners. There's technologies out there that are available to us that we're working on now. Our point of view has really been more to address cargo security. So I think that's where I would park it. As far as my thoughts on it, I think that the point of view is if it makes the industry safer, I'm for it. I think it's going to be interesting to see where this goes as far as how it impacts the industry with driver availability. A lot of things remain to be seen as far as when you look at the amount of drivers that are available and potentially capacity leaving the industry. But from a pure security standpoint, I think I'm probably addressing that from a shipper responsibility standpoint. We want to make sure that when a driver comes to collect our product, that we do the best we can to ensure that the driver who's taking our product is the driver who has a valid CDL, who can safely transport our product across the highway from point A to point B.
Oh, I love it. And well, hey, we're going to have to wrap up here because I know we got to have a short break here for the conference. You guys, thank you so much. It's my first live audience like this of this capacity. As you guys can hear, that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show. And if you're not subscribed, you guys, it's really easy to do it. And also, if you got value, share it as well, you guys, because if you saw value, that's how your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back. Ayy.